Hey everybody, Jason here. Still working on the Eylau game, and it's going alright. Getting this down. Yeah, it's going alright. So I had a couple of 2 or 3 attempts at the type of setup, and as you can see, the final result is what I ended up with. Trying to figure out how to best integrate the wooden Napoleon's Triumph red and blue pieces. Why? Other than aesthetically, I'm a sucker for them. I think that's it. This game plays just fine without them. You don't need it. Again, if I could back up, map is now double-sized from the original, and added pieces from Bowen Simmons' Napoleon Triumph game. So I wanted to go straight, just wooden pieces, and A, there weren't enough of them to make it possible, and B, there were some other information issues that would have been neglected. I mean, I could have abstracted it out a little, and I was willing to do that, but it was getting to be just too watered down, too simplified, so I couldn't in good conscience do that. So I compromised, and after coming up with best of both, what I consider the best of both worlds, this is what I got. Now, what do I got? I have infantry divisions, which is what the bulk of the wooden counters you see here are. In addition to that, the smaller cubes represent cavalry, and as much as I wanted to, I just couldn't swing it. So artillery and leaders, as well as headquarters, and with the Russians you've got some Jager infantry units. Those are not represented by wooden pieces, they're simply represented by cardboard. So I don't think you can see over here on the left, but you got your time track. What I'm playing is there's I think 2-3 scenarios that this game comes with. This Avalanche Press edition of Eylau, and what I've got going here is the battle, or the battle proper, February 8th. Now I think February 7th marks opening moves and maneuvering, etc. But the real meat of the thing takes place on February 8th, so that's what we're looking at here. Again, if you look on the left here, and you can't see that, and I don't want to mess with the camera right now. A, it's out of reach, but also it's just an inconvenience to mess with it. Starts at 8 a.m. and then on the 9, and 10, and 11th hours, the French will receive reinforcements. And then, assuming all goes well, the Russians will receive reinforcements in the way of Prussians on a 3, 4, and 5 o'clock hour, and the whole thing ends on the 8 o'clock hour. So, to go back to the way I have this set up, with the particular infantry divisions, those are marked with a number that coincides with the particular division that is represented. So for instance, 5, if you look over here, which you can't see, I have the representative counters marked, and these divisions break down according to steps. So each of these counters here, front and back, A, B, and then you'll have another counter, C, D, and then possibly another counter, E and F, as a way of marking casualties and losses that a division suffers. So the initial strength of each division is represented by the number of blocks. So for instance, 2, 4, 6, that seems to be about the average here, strength of a division. Is 6, so you would, as steps are lost, you would simply remove a block. What else? The command structure in here is a little intense. Nothing that can't be learned and incorporated effectively into gameplay. But there are a number of leader types and command chains and things to consider there. That really seems to be if there was to be a challenge with these rules. Simply familiarizing yourself with that aspect of the rules seems to be the only really challenge, if you will. What else do we have? It's interesting to note that the French just right from just an initial glance, the French look set up pretty darn good, especially with their bulky mass of infantry to the left and the center. The Russians, I'm not sure if that, I don't historically know enough about the battle to make this assumption, but it sure seems like the Russians will suffer as a result of their lack of mass of infantry. Now, they do have a bunch of spatterings of, like I say, Yager units and actually quite a bit of cavalry as well. But this stuff is only effective to an extent, and that's assuming that things go the way they want them to. I definitely want to, if I was involved in this thing, I definitely want to be relying on more of an infantry type thing, supplemented by cavalry, and go that route. What else? As far as the map goes, you've got numbers marked, and contrary to a cursory glance, these are not victory point areas. These have to do with stacking, and any area that is marked with a square or a pentagon will allow multiple divisions to stack within that area, if I have that right, and otherwise only one infantry division per area. Now, the tricky part, especially with having blown this thing up and done what I've done, naturally, the tricky part is the way this game works on the base original map is you can only fit so many counters in an area that will physically allow you to fit them in. So, again, having switched out counters and blown the map up double size, that only works to an extent with this version. So I'm really going to have to pay attention to that, and if need be, may even have to resort to the base map and test a few, what they call continuation or continuity, right? No, confirmation, so the conformity of units within an area. And I don't know why they just didn't call it conformity, they call it confirmation, whatever. Works for me. So I'll have to pay particular attention to that as this thing rolls along, and should be a lot of fun. I don't have a strategy down yet. We'll of course be playing a solo, as I typically do with 99.9% of my games, so and that's not a problem necessarily either. You just have to play each side as fairly as possible. I don't know if I'm going to go the chit draw route. I have house ruled and variated this thing so much already. I want to maintain or retain at least some semblance of the way the game is meant to be played, but we'll see how it goes. You know, that chit draw thing really does aid solo play, so the other problem is it's a little hard to do a dry run and then decide you don't like it and start over, because it took a long time for game setup, and that's not to say that it could never be set up again, but you know, I only got so much of this setup time in me and I want to get playing, so whatever I decide on needs to be pretty much written in stone when I start the opening moves. So again, I don't have a strategy set up yet. I think I might just roll with, and this victory conditions of this scenario at least are straight up casualties, so I may just roll with this French hammer here in this area and just roll right through the middle and just hack and whack. As far as the Russians, you know, it's hard to say. Hit and run type stuff, I don't know yet. Survive, I think that's the all best they can hope for. But we'll see how it goes. Russians may surprise us, and I would have loved to have used green for the blocks, but red's fine. And in the old maps that depict the battles of the era. That they're standard red and blue colors, so that's fine with me. Anything else I'm forgetting? I don't think there is. Let's look at the rules here real quick, and that'll be it for the cursory introduction of this thing. Let's see. Activation, you roll to see who activates, and then whoever does so, the other side gets a chance, and then it switches back and forth like that, kind of a you go, I go type thing. That's fine, I can live with that. That's assuming I stick with the core rules. But the interesting thing is, and I may have to reread this if I have it wrong, but if you fail to activate, then it goes to the opposite side. If they then fail to activate, then that is the end of the activation phase. I already talked about stacking a little bit. Facing is somewhat interesting in this thing. So again, having foregone the counters that come with the game, which really help. I'll be darned, I forgot to put some. All right. So for instance, this counter here, I don't know if you can see it or not, probably not, but there's a line that runs through the center of that infantry division. That line helps, if you continue on from that line, determine what the front facing, rear facing, and flank facing is. So again, having foregone those, it'll be interesting to, I'll probably just cut, say, in the middle of a formation and have that line extend and mark the facing and handle it in that respect. Not a big deal, it's simply something that you have to pay attention to. Artillery attachment, that's something slightly different for me. Simply being in the same area, and again, you're not going to see a lot of this stuff, but now why does it say that? Alright. You're not going to be able to see a lot of this stuff the way it's meant to be seen with this camera phone, but these areas are marked with boundaries, and what was my point in saying that? I lost my train of thought here. Sorry about that. The internet went off here, so I figured it was going off here. It's still going, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but this is an ongoing issue, so I want to make sure I'm filming when I'm talking and not just blowing a bunch of hot air. So anyway, the artillery attachments simply being in the same area is not going to guarantee that artillery unit is in fact part of a particular formation. So you have to actually physically attach that unit, which is represented by being adjacent to any infantry blocks. Those that are not attached, it really only affects it in so much as now that, say for instance, this artillery is attached to this infantry division, where it would normally be able to move up to 2 spaces, it would now be only be able to move 1 since it has that artillery attached to it. And I also think it has something to do with bombardment. It may not be able to bombard if it's attached, etc. But it's all in the rules, and for those of you that are somewhat new to wargaming or whatever, everybody seems to be under the impression that, oh my God, I have to read this and memorize every single word in here. No, you don't. Read it, start fiddling, and then when it comes to a specific section, a specific thing that you need to understand, then refer to that section and digest it a little bit more, a little bit better, and continue on like that. You don't need to know everything word for word when you start the thing. Just a warning. So then we have cavalry charges, as expected. You've got each unit has their morale value. Then it talks about terrain, and you're going to be rolling some dice with this thing. I guess you could call it BOD or BOD, buckets of dice, and I have no problem with that, as long as it's not up to 50 dice. Some of these games, like these fantasy tabletop games, are just ridiculous with the amount of dice they expect you to throw. Even that Dust Tactics stuff that I've played in the past, Jesus Lord, there's no way they can come up with a better system than having you roll 15 and 20 dice it seems ridiculous to me. So I don't mind the buckets of dice as long as it's a small bucket, all right? But interesting thing to note here with the firepower modifiers in regard to terrain, it goes by percent. So if you're in a particular terrain that requires a 25% reduction to your attack or combat, for every 4 dice you're going to subtract 1. That's kind of interesting to me. I like that. Simple, straightforward, and I think it'll work out just fine. So that's a brief introduction to Eylau, and once I get rolling here hot and heavy with some stuff, I'll report back with some developments and what I've been doing wrong and what I've learned thus far. So till then, I'll cut this thing off and catch you on the flip side. Talk to you later.